Is Undertone the scariest movie you'll ever hear? No. But I do think it's a well-crafted horror film, and despite its issues, it's still worth checking out. Welcome to Bite Size Bunny, my name's Tony, and today we are going to be talking about Undertone. In Undertone, we follow two co-hosts of the Undertone podcast, a horror-focused podcast dedicated to all things spooky and paranormal. But one day, they receive an email from a viewer that has 10 audio files attached to it, and as they begin to listen through them on an episode of the podcast, they start to realize there's something more sinister going on here. Starting out with the positives, this is an incredibly well-directed and effective horror film. When it is focused on its premise and we are listening through these audio files with our two lead characters, that is when the film is at its absolute best. The sound design of this film is impeccable. It is so good that it managed to get under my skin multiple times throughout its runtime, and I actually had multiple instances where I looked over my shoulder or down my alley despite being alone in this theater. It was me and the person I went to go see it with, and that was it. That audio experience alone is worth seeing this movie on the big screen for. But then we got the cinematography, and it is absolutely haunting. Yes, there are some gorgeous scenes, but for the most part, a lot of this film plays with what is hiding in the darkness. You're going to be looking all over the screen, trying to scan it for anything that may be jumping out at you. Even though the film doesn't really have any jump scares, you're still going to be left on edge because it loves to play with the shadows and making you think that you're seeing something that's hiding there. And it is a lot of gorgeous long takes, it's wide shots with slow pans. It absolutely takes its time with letting you sit in this uncomfortable, claustrophobic home with the main character as she is there alone, listening to these audio clips with her headphones on, completely vulnerable. You can tell the director had a very clear vision on what he wanted this movie to look and feel like, and he knocked it out of the park. When it comes to the performances, I think they're good across the board, and when it comes to our lead character, I think she is great in this film. The film is focused entirely on our main character, Evie, as she's taking care of her dying mom while also working on this podcast episode. And I think Nina Kiri does a great job in this role and does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to some of the movie's more quieter moments. When it comes to her co-host, Justin, played by Adam DeMarco, I think he does a good job in his role, but unfortunately I didn't really buy the chemistry between these two, and it definitely pulled me out of the movie during its earlier moments. It definitely took me some time to get adjusted to their dynamic, and even by the end of the movie's story, I wasn't fully buying into this chemistry and that these two were friends that had a podcast together. I think my biggest issue with Undertone is the way it structures its narrative. Because when they start this journey of listening to the 10 audio tracks, they only listen to the first two before deciding they need to stop for the night and that they'll pick up in a couple of days. And that happens multiple times throughout the movie before we get to the end of this journey, and it definitely broke up the momentum for me. It felt like every time things were starting to ramp up and get really intense, leaving me on the edge of my seat, the film decided it needed to take a break and give the audience a moment to breathe and calm down a little bit. And them deciding to back off on those horror elements every time it started to get really good and interesting, I felt myself getting totally engrossed and captivated by these audio clips and wanting to know what was going to happen next. It just killed the pacing for me. That is until you get to the last 30 minutes of this movie where it decides to fully commit to its premise, and it absolutely shines. It is so uncomfortable and unnerving and just downright creepy to watch and listen to. It absolutely got under my skin, and I was eating up every second of it. I love the finale of this movie. I think it is great. And I couldn't help but think that it just made me wish that the entire film focused on being this continuous descent into this hellish nightmare that really just let the audience squirm. I think with some editing, this could have gone from being a decent horror film to a truly great one. But that choice to ramp things up and then take a couple day break and then ramp things up again just to take another couple day break really baffled baffled me. It almost makes me wonder if it was there just to pad out the runtime a bit to get it to that 90-minute runtime. In that aspect, it's definitely a little disappointing. But overall, despite its flaws, I still enjoyed my time with Undertone. Is it a great film? No, but I do think it's a very well-crafted one, and I absolutely would love to see what this director is going to do next. I think he has a lot of potential to make some truly haunting and terrifying horror films down the road. In the meantime, I'm going to be giving Undertone a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. And what is your favorite A24 horror film? I'd love to know.